Story continues
And
in
there
just
we have
19
it.
days
Xbox
at E3
One.
20.
I'm Daemon Hatfield, and welcome to our Xbox event post-show brought to you by SpeedStick. For the next 2 hours, we're going to be talking all about what we just saw, how it compares to the PlayStation 4, and the future of Xbox. With me again is Ryan McCaffrey and game design legend Peter Molyneux. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Let's start with the name. There's a lot to talk about.
They
let's start.
They kept it a secret. They kept it a secret. I give them a lot of credit. Infinity, we were almost sure was going to be it. We had heard lots of stuff ahead of time that suggested it would be Infinity, so they seem to have pulled a fast one on all of us.
We heard a lot of rumors about what the name would be. Xbox One was not one of them.
No.
You said 95%.
I had it, yeah, I thought
My
I had
confidence in your ability to predict have been shaken.
Well,
by
it
that.
should be, but it seems like Microsoft maybe they were floating the Infinity thing out there to developers and media people alike as a smokescreen to hide the real name of the thing. Xbox One, but not Xbox One.
Number one.
Xbox ONE1.
I actually like it.
Yeah, it's fine.
It sounds like it's the start of a new, a new direction for Xbox, really. And I like the name.
So how does that make the PlayStation 4 look? Does it mean anything? Does it make it look old and?
It does a bit, doesn't it? I mean, it felt. I think that's what I got from this game. One is I thought it was a fantastic performance they put in. I thought it was really, it was typical slickness, but it felt like they were saying, right, this is the new start.
They're doing a 180 on 360.
Right,
Brilliant.
It's true.
I like the wordplay, yeah.
So, Peter, you were saying what you want out of the next Xbox is the perfect gaming console.
You didn't get that
The
today,
ultimate
did
gaming
you?
console.
Well, no. I mean, a lot of the conference was focused on everything else that the Xbox can do. Fascinating, and I want to try it out as it was. It didn't feel like it was the ultimate gaming console. There were a lot of questions in my mind. Is it going to be always on? Is it going to be always on? Is it going to require an internet connection? I think we can possibly say yes, it is.
All indications seemed, from repeated use of the term cloud to connected, it sure seems like it, and they failed to directly address the question. They did not come out and say, you will be able to play this even whether you're at home in the wilds of the forest without an internet connection. Yeah. So it would seem to indicate this may in fact be an always online console.
Which is fine. Which is fine to be always online as long as the benefits are there.
Right.
And the investment in servers, that was pretty impressive. I mean, there's something more behind that than just driving, voice search. And so, they've upped the number of servers they've got. So it sounds like there's some stuff there that could be exciting.
But the public backlash, as these always online rumors have been floating for weeks, if not months now, has been just unbelievably venomous. People do not want this. Is this a case, Peter, do you think, where once it happens and people do it and they'll get used to it and it'll be fine, or is this really a problem if it's always online?
I think if always online means some form of billing thing, or if it means that it's there for your analytics for Microsoft's purposes, then that backlash is justified. If it means advances in the way you interact with your friends, where you interact with the experience, if it's tangible differences in gaming, and if that tangible differences means better gaming and more gaming in the future, then I think that backlash will die down. But the proof is going to have to be at E3, I think, when they're going to have to come out and say, here is the reasons why it needs to be always online.
So it's almost like the opposite of Sony, where Sony came out and said, we've got a ton of games, here they are, we want to give you reasons to buy this console as a gamer, whereas Microsoft, but they didn't show the box, and people were like, okay, what is it, how much is it, when? But Microsoft has almost done the opposite, where it's, okay, here's everything it can do. Here's the box.
Yes,
We're gonna.
that's right.
It's cool
That's the thing
looking,
to open with.
which I guess we should talk about. But the games. Wait another couple weeks till E3.
We didn't see a game in the presentation until 33 minutes in, and it was an underwhelming, EA Sports.
Yeah, unless you count the wireframe tech demos that were the worst, easily the low point of the conference.
Yeah, there is no question in my mind any longer what Xbox is. It is not just a gaming platform.
No.
It is a broad entertainment device.
And
that also plays games.
Yeah.
Playing games is one of the things that it does.
And for better or for worse, this is in accordance with Microsoft's plan. You may agree with it, you may not, but from Peter, you can attest from the beginning of the Xbox project in 2000, 2001, it was their stated goal was we want to be the centerpiece. We want to dominate your living room. 360 took a step towards that. This is pushing their chips all in.
Absolutely. I mean, let's make this clear. The whole reason they got into the console space was to own the living room.
Yeah.
And that they say again and again, we want to own the living room. We want to be input one. They want to throw away all of your remote controls and replace them all with Xbox. And this is what this was all about. And it's a little bit scary for us gamers because we wonder if gaming is going to become secondary. Although I have to say, the geek inside me really liked that fast switching stuff. I absolutely loved the ability of going between TV and playing games and Skypes.
You mentioned that. This is one thing that I took notice of. Tell me if you guys agree. If we've got that sort of fast switching to get to any game you want quickly, to say it or just do it, so this has to mean, maybe this ties in with the always online, games will come on physical media on that Blu-ray drive, but they will be installed, they will be authenticated, and then you will not need a disc again. You can just say, play Halo, and boom, it's on. Play Forza, it's on. There will not be loading of any physical media. Is that fair to say based on what we saw?
It's interesting. I tell you, there was just one reference point. You can go to your friends and take your games with you. And that was very interesting.
The cloud then.
That points to the cloud. Maybe you can buy it, fit the physical medium, and some way upload it to the cloud or upload your authentication to the cloud. So when you go around to your friend, if you've got Call of Duty or FIFA, you can just download into it. There's fascinating how that's going to play out.
Is a 500 gig hard drive big enough to install all of your games on?
Not if they're 25 or 30 gigs a piece, right? I mean, that's what a Blu-ray...
500 gig is nothing these days. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a laptop which isn't, pushing 500 gig, and, we're talking terabytes.
We've gone from the Xbox 360 launched with a 20 gigabyte hard drive in 2005 to now 500 gigs, and yet that's nowhere near. Did we need a terabyte? Do we need a terabyte here?
We always need terabyte. I just like the word terabyte. It sounds right. Yeah.
So one of the biggest reveals is that Microsoft is planning original television content.
Yes.
For Xbox Live.
They wheeled out the Spielberg. The beard.
Who's bringing us a Halo TV series. Spielberg is involved, although they did not specify exactly how he's involved.
It has to be an executive producing. He'll sign off on it, and then,
Maybe he'll direct the pilot. That's kind of a thing, right?
I thought they were going to announce he was going to be Master Chief. That would be, good, the visor was finally revealed and it's Steven inside. That would be pretty cool.
I thought Halo would be involved in the presentation some way.
And it was, just not how we thought.
Yeah, not a new game. Yeah.
It's interesting that, we knew that they were setting up with Nancy Tellem, who came out to present that portion of the show. They announced her hire, I think it was sometime last year, and that she'd opened a Los Angeles-based studio to do entertainment TV things. So we've sort of had an Xbox TV scenario on the radar for some time, and it seems like they are trying to go down the Netflix-type route of having original, compelling content that you can only access through the Xbox and through Xbox Live. And it's an interesting bet. I'm not sure... Will it work? I don't know. I mean, is that do console owners want
everyone's trying? I mean, Netflix is trying it, Amazon is trying it,
right?
Everyone's
That's
doing
true.
it now, so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
it's a big ask, though.
It is.
It's creatively a very different direction than making games, and they've got to do as good a job they did with first-party studios with TV shows.
They did say that it would be with your Xbox Live membership as it is now, which I would hope means it will cost the same. There will not be some sort of...
Raising the price?
Yeah, or additional fee of any sort.
I don't know if as it means that.
How did you take it?
I think like everything, every line, I can assure you, every single line, every comma, every statement, every stutter has been very carefully thought about. And, there's some things they want to slightly confuse us with and some things they're not ready to reveal yet, and that's possibly one of them. I think they want to they want to maintain their flexibility, especially with pricing.
Well, it's funny you say that. They said Xbox One coming later this year. Sony said coming holiday 2013. Does this open the door for a September release? Is that possible?
It's all that it would really surprise you how late these decisions are made. And how much analysis they put into. If we say later this year, does that give us flexibility of going in September, or does it give us flexibility of going in December, just before Christmas? And so there's probably some reason they didn't say fall. They didn't say a month, and again, it's about flexibility. I think it's purely this: they want to save some of those reveals for E3.
Save some of those bullets in the chamber.
So they probably thought, well, say later this year, so that we can come out and say the exact.
Are they waiting for Sony, and or are they waiting on their manufacturing yields? Is it a political issue, or is it a physical manufacturing issue?
Well, physical manufacturing is always the problem, of course. I mean, it's all very well making a console, but if you don't have enough of them to launch properly, then I would imagine it's more to do with that. I don't think they think of Sony as a competitor anymore.
It certainly doesn't seem like it.
No, they're thinking very much of, TV network stations and Amazon and Apple, and you can see that there was no real play to Sony whatsoever, or Nintendo.
Now, we saw 8 gigs of RAM. They didn't say which kind, whereas, for the real tech geeks, Sony came out and said it's the GDDR5, the super fast RAM. Yeah. So that would, the pessimist inside would lead you to think that means it's not GDDR5, it's the rumored GDDR3. Does that really matter from a development perspective, Peter, that faster RAM?
Absolutely.
It does.
It's crucially important to have a lot more RAM, because these worlds that we're making now are a lot bigger, and that means there's a lot more geometry, and that means there's, you need a lot more of it, and they're much more open. That's one of the aspirations that they said, open, Phil Spencer, I think, said, we want to create open worlds. And open worlds are disastrous for RAM.
But how about the clock speed of the RAM? If it is the lower speed GDDR3 as opposed to Sony's GDDR5, I mean, to really get nitty-gritty, what difference does that make on the development side?
Well, anything to do with speed, you just need, the aspiration of keeping at 60 frames a second is very important. And that's where, even, the speed of RAM, even a slight increase in the speed of RAM can make a difference between 30 and 60. And, as Call of Duty proves, if you're not at 60, you're not there. Same with Forza, it's got to be at 60, and that faster RAM allows you to do that. I'm sure that I would imagine they're going to have to go with the faster RAM, because they're going to want to blow our socks off.
Oh, is it that? Do you think they haven't made that final decision yet?
I'm sure they've made the decision. I'm not quite sure why they didn't announce it and get it out of the way. I just think they're saving the details for E3. Yeah. The details of the release date. There was no talk about processor speed.
True.
That worries me, actually, even more than the RAM speed, is that, the processor speed, if it was going to be 10x or even 5x, I'm sure we would have seen it emblazoned on the
So it's not that it's not finalized, it's that they won't say.
I think so. They want to get. I bet you they're getting the messages out there, getting us excited about the TV side. I mean, when you think of the number of times I mentioned TV and revolutionizing your TV experience, getting us excited about that, getting us not worried about having Kinect there all the time. They want to get those things out the way, and then they'll bring in the details so that we're obsessed about processor speed.
Now we are joined by Steve Butts, Editor-in-Chief.
Hi, Steve.
IGN.
Hello, gentlemen.
I didn't. You just crept up now.
Snuck in on you, Peter.
Yeah, you did.
Absolutely. He does that. Steve, what did you think of the reveal of Xbox One?
I have mixed feelings. Overall, I think I'm slightly disappointed. There were some high points for me, but it took them 35 minutes before they even began talking about games. For me, that was a disappointment. I already have something in my house that lets me watch The Price is Right, and I don't need another device that does that. But it seems like Xbox One has baked in a lot of these features, and frankly, I think they're redundant for me. So I wanted to hear more about games. When they said we're launching with 15 new games, we have 8 new IPs, I thought, tell me more about that. Tell me about the new IPs, because, well, as you and I have said, Ryan, at the end of this console cycle, we're seeing a lot of games with 3s and 4s and 5s at the end of it, because publishers are looking to lessen their risk by merely iterating on last year's success. And when you launch a new console, it's time to launch a new property.
Well, and what about guys like me and an increasingly growing segment of, I would say, younger generation, especially, that we don't have cable or satellite TV subscriptions anymore? Can I not take advantage of half of this console's features?
Well, not only that, but are you being asked to pay an extra $80 or $100 for this console for a functionality that you don't need, that you won't use? That's a consideration that I have. That said, I was excited to see some of the game demos. I think the Call of Duty tech demo looks fantastic.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much it'll get away from the hand-holding that series
It did
does.
look a lot like Call of Duty, though, didn't it? Just prettier.
Absolutely, but a beautiful game. Fantastic game.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Call of Duty presentation?
I liked it. We actually had a chance to see this in advance, not that exact demo, but we saw the game last week, and it's beautiful. My question is how do the technical innovations translate into gameplay? How do they make me care that they have higher poly counts and they have these new particle effects and they have this new lighting system? All that's great, just on a piece of paper, but if it doesn't translate into a compelling, emotional, engaging experience, like you said, get with something like, say, The Last of Us, right, which looks far worse than the new Call of Duty looks, but the emotional intensity of that game I think is very apparent, and I didn't necessarily get that from this Call of Duty demo.
That was quite surprising because they're the king of doing these, totally blockbusting demos. And I didn't really get the same emotional connection from the demo. I think it was the mix of, explaining their tech and, having all the wireframe stuff, which, quite frankly, we've seen thousands of times.
And it leaves me cold.
And it does leave me cold. I just don't want to see behind the scenes. I just want to see, the emotional connections. Love the dog.
Obviously,
you would say that.
Love the dog, yes. Although I felt a bit sorry for the dogs. They strapped a lot on the poor Matt. But I love the dog, but I wish they'd spent a little bit more time on what you do with that new controller, and how it has that impact on the game and the emotion.
Well, that's it. It's the player filling in those gaps with their own imagination and feeling like the choices that they're making are relevant.
Yeah.
And you can have as beautiful a world as you can create, but if it's devoid of that sense of involvement or meaningful consequence based on the player's actions, it doesn't matter how good it looks.
Yeah.
Peter, as a developer, did you think the tech demos they were showing of the Call of Duty stuff, Call of Duty Ghosts, was impressive?
I think it was one of those demos where they kind of wanted you to appreciate how much work they were investing in the tools. And, that left you thinking, well, yeah, that's good that they've got all those tools, but, what is the gameplay? I would, and they always do this, they concentrate on the story in the world, but they don't really talk so much about multiplayer. I just want to know what that means in multiplayer. We all have dogs in multiplayer? Do we all, can we blow up our dogs? Or will you shoot someone else's dog? These are the questions that it didn't really
No
answer.
to all of that.
Yeah. Peter Molyneux left that demo asking, I wonder if I can shoot a dog.
Well, I'm sorry, that was the first thing that occurred to me. I mean, there are like bombs on the back of the dog's back. I mean, are you going to remote blow up?
You're a monster.
I didn't put that.
Did you guys find it interesting that they closed with Call of Duty? They've got some sort of exclusive partnership with EA. So the two power player third-party publishers, they're trying to hop into bed with both of them at the same time. Not an easy feat. And so Call of Duty is getting exclusive DLC, if I heard that correctly. We were sort of talking amongst ourselves here, but
Which has been happening for a long time.
Yeah, exclusive. Yeah, so continuing the same partnership. And yet also trying to get all those EA Sports games. So it seems like that's how Microsoft's trying to go for the gamers, is to hit them where they're most familiar.
I guess, but it only filled up about 10 minutes of their hour-long presentation. The rest of it was all Skyping your friends and things like that, which is fun, but ultimately not that compelling for me if we're talking about a system that could cost conceivably $500 or $600.
Yeah. Now, a criticism of Microsoft in the last few years has been well, they've been sort of resting on their laurels, letting the third parties do the work, not a lot of first-party innovation. They said that, but we didn't see it this time. All we saw was Quantum Break, which was not Alan Wake 2, as I've sort of hoped and thought it would be, but I'm still, I mean, it's Remedy, it's this fascinating mix of live action and gameplay, which seems interesting. But they did, Phil Spencer did say 15 first-party exclusive games in the next 12 months.
Yes.
I believe he said 8 of them are new IPs, so leaving the other half, 7, as new franchises. I mean, I hope we see all that at E3 because that changes the narrative quite a lot, I think.
It does, but how different is that from the 360 launch? Because when he said 15 over the first year, I mean, that could be all 15 at launch, or it could be, 1 at launch and 14 9 months
Well, I think
later.
he would have said 15 at launch if he meant
I'm sure
if
he
he
would.
meant that. The question is how many of those at launch. Forza is the only one we can
for sure.
100% say for sure will be a launch title.
Yeah. And it doesn't look like it's going to be a Halo because they're concentrating. 343 seem to be concentrating on the TV series.
Yep. Well, while they toil away on Halo 5, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no. They already said there are going to be 3 more Halos, 4, 5, and 6. It's no secret. Now, we're watching the Quantum Break trailer here. This sort of reminded me a bit of Beyond Two Souls for PlayStation 3. Am I crazy to say that?
I don't know, but Peter Molyneux also guessed that there's a time travel element.
I think there is a time travel element in it. I mean, what is intriguing is the first bit was live action.
Right.
Yeah.
Does this link in some way to a TV series?
That's what I was wondering.
Bingo.
They're
Xbox
going to have
TV.
this original programming on Xbox Live, like the Halo TV series. I wonder if there's a Quantum Break TV series that you watch weekly.
See, I'd be fascinated by that if it's done well.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing
That's
Triumph Worlds is doing with Defiance, right?
Right,
On the
yeah.
Sci-Fi Network.
Something like that.
That's your problem. I mean, if you've got to make a great game and a great TV series, that's insane.
Well, interestingly, Remedy is sort of the perfect partner to try this with because we saw in both Alan Wake and Alan Wake's American Nightmare, they sort of have dabbled in some live action stuff, like the TV sets you can click on and watch in the game have live action stuff going on in them, and so it seems like Remedy was already sort of going down this path. So it's an interesting team up here, seemingly a perfect match.
One of the things that Phil Spencer did say is they're master storytellers, and they're absolutely right. They're great at doing those stories. Max Payne,
Sam Lake,
still remains one of my
Absolutely.
favorite stories of all time. So, that's fascinating.
Steve, what do you think about the name Xbox One?
I think it's nice. It's a very powerful name.
What was the reaction in the IGN bullpen?
Just relief, right? That the suspense is finally over. The speculation is over. We obviously have a lot of logistical considerations that are tied into the name.
Well, it says Xbox 720 at the top of the site. That'll be changed very soon, obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I really like the name. I think it's very clean. It's very sharp. It gets to the idea of what they want, which is one device. This is everything you need in your living room, Xbox One. I am a little concerned about the voice commands. If somebody comes into the living room while I'm playing and says the words "watch TV" just in normal conversation, am I going to get booted out of my game?
Sure.
Yeah, that happened with the original Project Natal unveil. That was part of the tech demo was Xbox Good Night, I think, or something, to turn off the system, and they ended up not doing it. For that very reason.
Now, here's a question with the voice command. At any time, did they say things like "watch"? The Price is Right. Did they name shows?
So they named networks.
Naming networks. You see, because if they're naming shows, these are things that can change. Then you're almost sure to need to have that always connected.
Yeah.
Because you have to go to the cloud to do the voice recognition.
Figure out what you just said.
But if it is a defined suite of words, then it's less likely to have.
Do we want to talk about the box itself?
We can talk about it in just a moment. We have to say goodbye to Steve. I believe he has a very important call that he needs to take right
all
now.
sorts of important things to do.
Have you?
But thank you for joining us.
Who's the important call?
I'm not allowed to say.
Well, that's no good. We're fed up with not allowing to say.
There's an embargo on that, Peter.
Is there?
All right.
Okay.
But thank you guys for your time today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
We'll be bringing in another IGN editor to talk with us in just a moment. We are getting some questions in from some of our viewers via Twitter. If I can just do this.
There we are.
Questions such as, where'd they go? Give me a second to pull that up.
So,
what I want to know about is the fast switching between
Yes.
apps, games, TV was happening very fast. You have experience with Microsoft's press conferences. Was that happening live?
Well, if it was happening, I mean, this is the problem when you're in a presentation. There's lights, there's sound, there's cameras flashing the whole time. It's hugely risky to have it live. But one thing I can say is Microsoft were always honest. They would have a backup plan, so they'd have someone standing by and switching for them, but they would try to be honest. Often that they couldn't do it because of all the noise there. So I would imagine that maybe it wasn't live, but they had done it in an honest way. So the speed at which it was switching, that was probably the way it worked.
To my mind, it's not as important if it's happening live as long as it does actually happen that quickly.
Yes, I'm sure that they've been honest about it.
Yeah.
And that I love that speed actually. I love the speed of switching.
And that's what Kinect missed, the input, the latency, the input time is what Kinect 1 lacks now.
It does, and you need, if you're going to use gestures, you need that speed. I mean, of course, it totally negates the ability of me doing my John Travolta move at any point in time because you've got these defined gestures. But if it's that fast, if it works in a shorter possible time, you can do very quickly switch. Then it's going to be delightful.
We're now joined by Greg Miller.
Hey!
Hey, Greg.
What's up, guys?
Nice blazer.
Thank you, huh? Yeah, I've been breaking it
Classing
in
it
for
up.
about a year now.
Greg, you and I were hosting IGN's coverage of the PlayStation 4 reveal.
We did. Those were good days.
So now, what do you think about Xbox One?
It's been mind-boggling. It's one of those. I think we all predicted coming in, if PlayStation wanted a chance in this thing, they had to bet on gamers. And then we all started talking about what Xbox was going to do, and we talked about them that they'd want to be the entertainment hub of your living room. Yeah. But I mean, to come out and have this first 30 minutes not be about games at all, it's really is this trajectory of what's the horse to bet on right now?
They look very different, right?
Yeah, they're going for different audiences in a big, big way, which is crazy. I didn't expect it to be this wide of a chasm from conference to conference on what we saw.
So I wonder if that'll work for Microsoft. Microsoft is going for a bigger, broader audience.
Right.
At least that just from these two press conferences. That's
No, I agree with you 100%.
So what I wonder is, everybody, the millions of people watching this, IGN viewers, are they really going to run, based on this presentation, are they running out to put a pre-order down on Xbox One after all this TV stuff and very few games, whereas they probably, there's a good chance they ran out and put their PS4 money down. Is this going to draw the pre-orders?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. I would venture the guess that for the IGN audience, I think this probably did less for them than the PlayStation 4. I think that the fact you come out and you show games and we're about games and these are our games and we're not going to screw up anymore. Please come develop for us. That was enticing to them. Whereas this was it's funny because last night I was sitting at my desk and I was thinking about wanting to do more stuff on YouTube and I'm like, maybe I should just stop watching TV altogether. I don't watch that much TV already. I watch Game of Thrones and I watch something here on HBO. It's like, what if I just gave up on TV and only started wondering about what I'd watch on YouTube from now? And then you come out today and that's their cornerstone is, hey, you can switch between your TV and hey, turn on the TV and Price is Right is on. And it's like, oh my God.
That is interesting because more and more people are cutting their cable, right?
They are. I did. I just got tired of, we're all busy. As we get older, we get busier. We have families. And, I just got tired, we were talking about earlier, of as Steve said, of paying $70, $80, $90, $100 a month for, a cable or satellite TV service that I just don't use that often when I get, HBO Go with my sister's login. And I subscribe to MLB TV because I'm a huge baseball fan. And I'm downloading shows like Archer a la carte off of iTunes, and I feel like it's been 5 or 6 months for me of cutting that cable satellite cord, and I don't miss it at all. And so I wonder about this console, and will it compel me to go back to paying a $90 monthly bill? I don't know about that.
Yeah. And I wonder how it's going to work in Europe.
Yeah.
I wonder how it's going to work with all the different. But do you literally take your satellite and plug it in the back of Xbox One?
We should hopefully get the answer to that question from Scott Lowe and Mitch Dyer, our men on the ground here, who hopefully are going to be getting to see the console later today. We hope. We don't know for sure, but We were saying during the broadcast, this thing's got to have multiple inputs on the back.
Yeah.
It absolutely has to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts there, I don't think.
We're going to call Scott Lowe on the line. I was just getting his phone number in my ear.
It was just being telepathically sent to you.
Greg, talk about your highs and lows, your highest moments and your lowest moment of the Xbox conference.
Oh, man. I don't know if there was. I think showing the console, right, when they finally gave it a name and we got to see the sexy vents and everything else, and like what the new color scheme.
Yeah, right. Like, did you notice that the top of the console, the entire right half of it is ventilation. Like they clearly are like, okay, we cannot have a red ring overheating situation again. Like literally the half of it is vents.
I think that was because it wasn't a red ring overheating. It had to be silent. They said almost silent.
I love that was one of the things they called out, right? That it'll be running almost silently. You're like, wow, okay, that's a nice change, and it shows that they're reacting to what the biggest criticism.
If it's as quiet as the Xbox 360 Slim, I'll be quite happy with
exactly, right. Just don't make the buttons so sensitive. That's my don't make the
touch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my coat brush is the Xbox 360.
We're looking at footage of the console now, and so we know it's a Blu-ray drive. That certainly looks like a slot-loading drive, which is what the PS3 has had its whole life, but not the 360. The 360's had tray loading the entire time. You can see...
Scott.
Oh, have we got Scott?
Hello, Mitch is here too.
Scott and Mitch.
How's it going?
We're doing great. How are you guys feeling?
Pretty good. We're still in the auditorium. We're sitting in the tent looking at people crowding around the hardware. Yeah.
So
crowd is slowly dissipating.
What's your status now? You're getting a good look at the Xbox One?
Yeah, so we got a good, close-up look. I mean, surprisingly, they let a bunch of people on stage take a closer look at the hardware. Obviously, it's non-functioning, so I mean, we didn't see it in action, but we got a real good closer look at the console, which is surprisingly not much bigger than the current generation. I mean, obviously, it's still kind of a hulking machine, but like it is, fairly restrained considering the kind of hardware they've got involved under the hood. A few things to note is it's matte and black plastic, just like the kind of current gen PlayStation 3, but it's blends like gloss and whatnot.
Okay. Can you look at the inputs in the back? We were wondering if you plug your satellite TV right into the console.
Yeah, so it has HDMI pass-through, so it'll work with your cable box. So as kind of rumored before, like it goes. HDMI from your cable box goes in. I mean, they haven't really detailed this, but this is kind of like how I'm presuming it's working, just based on what we see on the back. So an HDMI input on the back, and then an output so it can go straight to your TV. One of the coolest things, I think a lot of people will be psyched about is that apparently there is no external power brick. It's all encased in the system. So like it's
interesting.
Which
That's
is
impressive.
A huge advancement over the current gen.
Sure.
One thing also to note is that like it's got a ton of ventilation on this thing. Like there's a massive fan. Like there's so many just like pass-throughs for air to get through because obviously this is a very powerful system.
That's meant to stay on all the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, the Kinect seems considerably bigger as well. I mean, because it's not so much in overall like space in terms of what it's taking up, but as far as like design, it's more square and rectangular. So yeah, it's definitely a little more compact, a little more hard edged. Yeah. It doesn't have the roundness of it. It's not nearly as wide. So for more room for whatever's inside. Yeah. We also got a good look at the controller.
Right.
I noted this during the press conference, but it kind of looks like the hybrid of like the original controller and the 360 controller. Obviously, the most noticeable thing is the triggers and the D-pad. The triggers have a bit of a curve to them on the not just obviously like in the standard kind of trigger shape, but along the sides too. So they're kind of like it transitions instead of that hard flat edge between the kind of the face of the controller and the trigger piece.
What did you guys think about the conference overall?
Mixed. I mean, I'm excited. I was explaining this to Mitch. I'm excited about the products. I don't know if like the presentation itself was all that awe-inspiring. Like it was very concise, very to the point, which was great. But at the same time, like I was saying this for the entire conference, like there was no gameplay like of anything. I mean, what we saw of games. The only real gameplay that we saw was Call of Duty Ghosts, which was more of like a trailer than anything. Yeah. So like a live demo would have been great, but yeah. Wasn't too awe-inspiring. I think the console itself is really interesting, and I'm really excited to see more of it at E3, but as it stands now, I don't feel like anything that Microsoft showed today was particularly next-gen. Nothing about it got me excited to say, like, this is the future of Xbox, because very little of it seemed like something that couldn't be done now, like the snap bar on the side that shows you your fantasy picks or whatever, the various Kinect integrations, all of that stuff feels like this is what Kinect should have been. This is a lot of what Microsoft originally wanted but wasn't capable of doing. Yeah. And now we're seeing the realization of that, and it's nice to see that finally, yes, but it doesn't seem particularly inspiring as like the future of video games. Yeah, one of the interesting things to me was like a discussion of like how the software is divided up. I mean, Xbox OS for games to really kind of optimize the system and like drive all the power to the game, and then Windows kernel for like kind of the more entertainment stuff, and then obviously just the basic UI. And you could see that performance like kind of boost, in the demos that we saw. Like the Kinect may actually be worth a damn.
Now, guys, I have a couple questions. I have a couple questions about the box and the controller since you've been able to get up close with them. I just noticed in the video that we're looping back, it looks like the back and start buttons are not back and start buttons anymore. I'm seeing one that looks like sort of a menu, and the other one that's got like window panels on it. You have any theories on that?
Picture in picture almost. It's almost it looks like exactly like that, or like a photo album on your PC. I would assume that one of those is the share button and the other is your dashboard menu. Like the menu button would obviously just bring up whatever UI you want to summon without Kinect, and then the other one would share your clips and screenshots. So the one on the left, like Mitch was saying, I think that's the start button. And I mean, obviously, we still have a lot of day and demos ahead of us, so we'll get more information on this. But the one on the left to me seems like the contextual menu, so like start menu. But then the picture-in-picture kind of shape icon on the right one says to me that brings up like the multitasking view, because obviously that was a huge portion of it. Right. Like the software side of things for this presentation was like how you can really kind of simultaneously swap between things, like with minimal effort.
Yeah. And then how about the guide button on the top of the face of the controller? Is that a button? Is that a touchpad? Can you tell what that is?
They wouldn't let us touch it. They wouldn't let us touch the table. Yeah, they got really bad. Yeah, so we're not quite yet able to determine whether that's a button or not. But hopefully we'll learn more shortly in the coming hours, because as we talked about earlier, like we were tweeting about, like this is like Microsoft has a long day ahead of us. Like we have a demo of the labs to talk about kind of the development of the console. Interactive experience, which presumably is a hands-on session. So we've got a lot to learn and a lot to see and a lot of questions to ask. So we're really excited. And obviously anyone watching the stream, please tweet Mitch and I over Twitter at Scott Lowe and at MitchieD. With your questions, because obviously we're right here with the source of it all, so we can ask your questions in real time to the people that matter.
And then Scott, real quick, that does look like a slot loading Blu-ray drive, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it is. It's a PlayStation 3 drive.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting looking box. I mean, it's kind of it's very flat, very minimal, which is very modern. It's not it's not screaming gamer box, which is interesting.
Well, thanks a lot, guys, and keep us apprised of your situation.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right, later, Mitch and Scott. What about, they talked about sharing functionality, but they didn't ever mention a share button like on the PlayStation 4.
Right. No.
What do we think their plans are?
Well, they've got this fast switching, so I suppose it's very easy to share. And they did have the Skype stuff on there, so because Skype can do on things like the PC, Skype can do screen share, and so maybe they were talking about integration with Skype, and so that's another mystery that's there.
And they did talk about gaming DVR, so you will be recording.
Yes.
What you do.
Yeah, they talked about native sharing and editing tools being there. And I thought that the fact that they left that ambiguous, and again, they're going, like we talked about, right, a more mainstream audience, that let a lot of people on Twitter were immediately going, it's competing with the PlayStation 4, it's doing exactly what the PlayStation 4 does. And I responded to a couple, I'm like, we don't know that yet. That's a big assumption to jump to, when it could easily be that, you can record a section, bring it down, put, clip parts of it out, and then upload that to YouTube, and that be the end of it, right?
Viewers at home, remember you can be part of the show by tweeting your questions and comments at IGN. Jordan Sullivan did. He says, no price, big hint there.
Well, that's what we talked about on the pre-show,
pricey.
So your assumption is now it's going to be an expensive, but
there were rumors heading into this, that it would have I'm not saying it's not still the case, but there would be a $300 subsidized version with a 2-year Xbox Live contract at $15 a month, and then a $500 no contract version. It would seem like It's at very least a $500 no contract version for sure. I think if they had a price point they were excited about, like, oh, this thing's $299, come and get it, they would have said so.
Yeah.
What was the 360 when it first launched?
$399.
It was $399. Yeah, it seems a stretch to ask people to pay more than that.
I agree. I think Sony taught us that we don't launch above $399 because bad things happen.
Right, and you don't mention it.
But the flip argument to that is, since then, Apple has come in and trained everyone to spend $300, $400, $500 on an every year or every 2 years on new tablet and phones. So I don't know.
So what? I suppose the summary point. What are we actually buying? Because a lot of what
a cloud.
We saw, it is a lot of cloud stuff. A lot of what we saw is just, in a way, reskinning some of the stuff we can do and making it more streamlined, as Mark Whitten says, bringing it all together. And it was that. I saw it, and it was very slick, or doing all this, pass-through stuff. But I just started to come back and ask myself, what am I actually going to be spending $300-$400 on?
The ability to jump between your HDMI imports much faster.
Right. Well, this is what Apple does so brilliantly in their presentation. They say you are buying this, and this is, and they reiterate the point. Ever. Yeah, best thing ever, and they reiterate the points. What was the big point out of this conference? It certainly wasn't. It's the ultimate gaming machine, which is
certainly not. And you're not the only person feeling that way. One of our viewers, Rajakar, says, "Do Microsoft realize I can already do all that stuff? They want me to buy a new device to save a button press. Underwhelmed." It's true. I already use my 360 as my all-in-one entertainment device.
That's true.
I use it to watch TV shows, watch movies, and play games. So that part of it isn't really new to me. The fast switching is nice. Yeah. But it's like how much, I agree, how much are you asking me to pay to be able to fast switch between?
Of course, the fast switching means you've got even more to surf in the world.
That's true.
It brings all your surfing together. Mm-hmm. So you can have a good 2-hour surfing session without actually settling on one thing.
Right.
Indecision is just going to be rife in the world.
Now, Greg, we've seen a blurry teaser for what the PlayStation 4 looks like.
Some more sexy events there. A lot of sexy event photos.
And a black rectangle. We have a black rectangle here as well. I know it's shocking to our audience that it's a black rectangle. But did you guys like the industrial design of the console?
Yeah, I mean the system looks sexy.
I
think it looks really, really slick so far. The controller, I'm excited to get a feel for, but it looks really good too. Right? And that's the one. And when they were like, redesign D-pad, it was like, yes, standing ovation.
Finally,
a perfected D-pad.
It only took us 10 years.
Right. Except for the one German controller they put out that did it. Yeah. I thought the box looked really good, and now it's back to PlayStation. See what they have up their sleeve.
Ryan, you're a big Forza fan.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Forza presentation? Forza 5.
Every demo, every quote-unquote gameplay video we saw had the same sort of like CG sheen on it, I thought. And I'm not saying it wasn't real, but I'm questioning if that was actual gameplay. I hope it is. I hope it looks that amazing. Obviously, it was cut and with all those slow-mo camera angles, tire treads in slow-mo. But I was left wondering, is this what we're watching on the screen now? Is that really what it's going to look like when I turn on my television? And racing games are especially tricky because they all have photo modes and replay modes that don't actually look like the moment-to-moment racing gameplay. But I mean, if it's close to this, I mean, look at the lighting on those empty tires there. I mean, it could be. I hope it looks that good, but I'm going to need to see it at E3 running.
Yeah, it's fantastic carbon fiber detailing, by the way, which is perfect. But if you look at the particle effects, that's where you can always notice that's where the fidelity starts falling down. So the smoke and the grain, and it was pretty good. I start wondering about all these balloons in the background, and it seems like an awful lot of stuff for a system to handle.
Do we think you have to use Kinect now with Xbox One? Or no?
I don't think so.
That would. I mean, they can't do that.
But that
they can.
Well, they could, but I mean, I think it would be an even bigger. Let's alienate people who are the gamers, right?
That's what the two buttons are.
That's what I'm saying. You surely you can still fast switch without saying Xbox
Yeah,
TV or Switch TV or whatever.
Every console will be shipped with a Kinect. We'll sure as heck hope you don't have to have it plugged in at all times.
Shipping with Kinect could also keep that price up.
That's true. That's true.
What do you guys think about the grab screen mechanic?
When they did it, I was like, all right, they got to be letting me do this with a controller. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting closer to that Minority Report feel, but I'm not ready for it yet.
You're not ready for
I don't want it. I don't want that. That's not the experience I'm looking for. I'd much prefer to have it be, I tap a button, or, one of the big things they were talking about was that SmartGlass is in it, right? And that SmartGlass is going to work with your iOS device, and it will be used to control this experience. I'd be fine with that. To have it running on my phone and be like, oh, tap out to jump to my things and see.
But I think it's again that the snapping and grabbing. It's not for you, Greg, or for me. It's for mom that's watching Price is Right that can just be like, okay.
Mom isn't using the Xbox.
See, this has been my argument when they started with Kinect and PlayStation Move, that they were just chasing this Wii audience, that the Wii just caught on nobody was expecting that with the Wii, and they caught that audience and got them, and then all of a sudden Microsoft and Sony said, we can get them too. And I thought that you've seen them fail at doing that. And I think in the same way, I just bought my mom an HD TV. Like, she is not prepared to buy this and snap and grab and be Skyping with me while she's watching this movie about Star Trek, and no.
No, it would terrify people, and because I think the average consumer would say, well, I would have to sit still. I couldn't move if I was watching TV. So it is a bit of science fiction, and it's amazing how influential that Minority Report, the number of meetings at Microsoft where people were saying, right, we're going to do Minority Report, we're going to beat Minority Report. It's still not there. And of course, Kinect, the version 1 Kinect, was terrible at doing seated gesture recognition.
Yeah.
They did. I was surprised.
Says the guy that made a game that you played entirely while you were seated, Fable the Journey.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Peter and
Ryan.
Ryan.
Somewhat worked.
When they talked about SightGlass, did that do anything else to? Is it SightGlass? Or SmartGlass.
SmartGlass.
Well, I thought that was a clumsy bit of the demo actually, when he took out his phone and remote controlled the TV as well. But I hope what that actually means is that you can use SmartGlass instead of using any of the Kinect stuff to control the entirety of your Xbox. If you had that, then that's pretty good. I've always wanted to throw my remote controls away,
right?
Because they're bewildering,
confusing
things.
Yeah, I mean, imagine you can take your iPad and have, even if you're watching the movie on full screen, then you have your entire Xbox One dashboard there and be able to click that.
See, that's interesting.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
But here's the question: there's a lot of problems with saying, the statement I think Mark Whitten said is that this is going to be the only box that you need. There's a lot of problem with things like volume control. No one's really sorted out. There's all these different standards for volume control, and sometimes you've got an amp which controls the volume.
Somewhere somebody at Microsoft is scrambling right now. We didn't think of that!
Oh my God, there's no audio.
But without volume, if it really is an all-encompassing system where I can throw away my remote controls, fine. But I bet it's going to be a bit messy.
There'd have to be like a compressor or like a leveler, an audio normalizer within.
You can do
the
this
system.
to turn the volume down.
Right.
It's Comcast right now can barely run my internet. So I have no faith that my Comcast DVR is going to be able to be plugged into this box and understand the difference, and that I turn one on, the other turns on.
Well, that's on Microsoft to sort out, though, because there are lots of different providers around the country, and Peter, you mentioned Europe. Like what? What's going to go on over there?
What the hell's going to happen? I mean, I'm not sure I know how many languages Kinect recognition is in, but it's certainly not every language.
It's a lot of them, though. They have a lot of language libraries already.
Outer Mongolian?
I don't know about that.
I don't know how big Xbox is there. Well, 8 gigs of RAM, is that enough?
It's never enough.
No.
It's never, ever enough. And, the more RAM that you can, the more RAM you have, the bigger the world that you can create, and the less paging in a memory you have, and the more stable your frame rate is.
And what you alluded to earlier, Peter, is, 8 gigs of RAM, just like the PS4. We don't know the clock speed of the RAM, what type of RAM it is, but with all this dashboard stuff going on, what's the footprint of that dashboard within that 8 gigs of RAM? Are we down to 6 for games now?
Well, you've got the dashboard. Then you've got the Kinect.
3 operating systems, they told us.
Right.
3!
Yeah, you've got the 3 operating systems, and the dashboard and the Kinect stuff. That could be a huge chunk of that memory. I wouldn't be surprised if you're looking at maybe 20% of that memory taken up with all the system. And I'll tell you the other thing we haven't talked about at all, this fast switching is going to be incredibly memory hungry.
Right, doesn't it? It has to be. If
It
you have
has
all
to
that
have
stuff
some
running and open
footprint,
at the same time.
It's like your
Unless-
iPhone, right? When you leave too many apps open and
Yeah.
everything
You have to go
starts
back and
chug.
close
Yeah,
20
yeah,
apps.
Then it becomes like an asthmatic child, where it's just like,
I'll get Star Trek on in a second. Give me a second.
Yeah.
3 OSs. Is that interesting? Xbox One runs 3 OSs. The Xbox OS.
it's marketing speak, isn't it, Peter?
Kernel
That
of Windows.
All it says to me is every time you go to Xbox One, there's going to be like 50 updates. I mean,
Drivers
it's
are out
bad
of date.
enough as it is when you go on to Windows, there's an update a minute.
Right.
But now with 3 of them, we're going to be updated to hell.
But if it's always online, it can do that overnight in the background.
That's
right?
true. That's
So
true.
hopefully it's
Yeah.
non-invasive.
Hopefully, yeah.
As long as it's something you need to ask you.
You got
It's,
what you-
it's amazing, though, that we're doing all this talking. We're not talking much about games, though, are we?
But again,
About
we
switching.
warned everyone at the top of the show. Microsoft warned everyone that it was going to be this way. That E3 was going to be the coming out party for the games. Again, the thing I'm going back to, because I'm sure Twitter is probably melting down right now over, there were no games. But again, Phil Spencer did clearly say 15 first-party titles within the first year, and 8 of those would be new IPs. If those all come out to play at E3, and they're that suddenly we get a lot more optimistic about this console.
Well, by coming out to play, do you mean featuring in some montage? No doubt about that.
I mean gameplay. Like, let's see it.
No way.
No
way
way?
they're going to have 15.
Well, I'm not saying all 15, but a healthy chunk of them.
Greg,
Yeah.
review the Xbox One reveal on the IGN scale.
You love to ask that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Don't tell me. You have other guesses already from what people have asked or been asked?
I just want to know.
I know, I'm trying to
You're
think.
the first one that's reviewed it. You're the
Oh,
exclusive
I'm
review.
getting exclusive review.
Yeah. Money hat.
And we're on the 100-point scale or 20-point scale? I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The current IGN scale.
Current IGN scale. I'll go
100 point.
6.9.
6.9.
The
So
old
not quite
scale.
good.
It was okay.
It was
We're
okay.
getting close to good.
It was an okay. It was an okay.
Yeah.
comment. That seems fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I think
From the
Peter's
perspective
talking
of
about,
someone
like,
who wants games, that makes
Well,
sense.
Exactly.
We'll patch it later at E3.
Thank
right?
you. We'll come back and we'll update
Is this
our
the patch
review.
that makes the conference fun?
Yeah.
Greg, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Next, we're going to be joined by Rich George, who has some news updates for us.
Oh, good.
But while we get him switched out in here, what did you guys think about what they talked about, dynamic and changing achievements?
Peter, you've got to love that, right?
Yeah, well, what's it mean?
Yeah.
The first part of the question is, can I take my gamer score and all my achievements across to
Absolutely.
Xbox One?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they didn't directly address that.
If you don't, there will be a, let me see if I can say it properly this time, a pitchfork and torch mob
Yes.
outside of Microsoft's
An angry mob.
office. Yes, an angry mob.
Chainsaw and flamethrower mob. I
You
think.
just escalated the situation, Peter, but yes, I actually think it could go. Yeah, of course, because we did that from Xbox One to 360. We were able to, of course, back then there was no gamer score and achievements, but we were able to move our profile, which was basically the gamer tag. You could port your gamer tag over to the 360, and so I'm sure all of that is coming over.
I mean, I'm all
Especially
for...
if it's all in the cloud.
Yeah, if it's all in the cloud, I'm all for revolutionising what achievements are and making them more meaningful, because what Mark did say, and you've got to give them credit for making those achievements meaningful in the first
Yes.
place. What he did say is it's got a little bit messy, and should be less about you getting through certain goalposts and more about your overall gamer score, aggregating all of that stuff together. And that's what seemed to be those two little sort of pie charts that came up. That's what that was talking about. I think is aggregating all of your gamer score so you can empirically say, I am better than you.
Well, here's a thought. With all this
'Cause that's
TV and living room focus, will there be some sort of achievements
That's
tied
exactly,
to television?
That's exactly what I was going
Or
to
Skype.
You want to get people to watch the new Halo TV show? Well, you get some achievement points for watching the whole episode.
Absolutely, they will. I mean, you probably don't realise this. There were achievements in a version of Office
What?
Yes, there were. You got achievements for using a certain menu on the ribbon.
Track changes, achievement unlocked.
Yeah, it was. I don't think it. I think maybe
We are joined now by Rich George.
Hi,
Welcome,
Rich.
How's it going?
Rich, you apparently have some news updates for us.
Well, it's getting a little crazy out there right now. And actually about some of the topics you guys are talking about. So, I think we all saw that there weren't a ton of games on the Xbox Reveal Conference, but I've got about 10 that are now joining the roster, give or take. Destiny got confirmed. Assassin's Creed 4, Watch Dogs, those are obvious ones. Ubisoft has pledged 6 games for Xbox One within the first year.
Okay.
Including, I believe they've said at least one new IP. So there's that. Black Tusk has been confirmed to reveal their game at E3,
Excellent.
which is an internal Microsoft studio.
That'll be that's one of the 8 then that Phil Spencer mentioned.
Exactly, and then Thief. I mean, some of these aren't huge surprises, but at the same time, it's like, okay, at least now we can stop pretending that there are other next-gen consoles, and we can just say Xbox One.
Yeah, Xbox One, PS4.
Some other big stuff for you guys. You were just talking about gamer scores, tags, avatars. Those will be ported over. That's confirmed.
Excellent.
However, the system is not backwards compatible with your 360 games. So keep a hold of your 360 if you really cherish those games. You will not be, using them on your Xbox One. And I don't think Microsoft has really detailed if there's, those older games will be somehow available to access on the Xbox One. So. That's something for all gamers to keep in mind. We also know now that all Xbox One games require an installation. They will all be installed to the hard drive. And we know now, and there's not a lot of details on this, but there's some sort of fee to install it to other accounts. So if I have multiple accounts on my system, it sounds like...
Wait a minute. That's
ridiculous. So like my girlfriend and I both have our accounts on one system, but if I want to install it to mine to get the achievements, to get all that sort of stuff, there's some sort of fee. But we don't have a lot of details on exactly what that looks like.
The way I understand that, let's say a family, there's multiple kids in a family.
That's what it's
sounding like. You can't buy one copy of the game and all the kids can't play that copy?
That's what it's sounding like. Again, this is early, breaking news type thing. So we'll be, stay tuned to IGN. We'll have more of the sort of specifics on how that works. I sort of scribbled a bunch of notes down and rushed in here.
That's really big.
We also know that the system is not always online. It's not required. Exactly the specifics of that, again, still some stuff that we need to kind of determine and figure out. I mean, so everyone knows, Microsoft is having hours of events going on right now, and there's a roundtable starting soon that our guys are attending. So I'm sure we'll get more details on this, but it's not always online. Now, exactly what parts are required, what parts aren't, that sort of thing.
So it sounds like there will for sure be an authentication.
I think so.
For an online authentication for
especially
your games.
with that fee, you're going to have to authenticate that somehow and check your.
It is glorious news indeed if you can play this thing without an internet connection.
Yeah, and then in other news, Sony's stock is surging right now. So
really,
it's surging right now. So
so the market has spoken then what they feel about.
To the extent that they
What's Microsoft's stock doing?
That I don't know. We just know that Sony's is there you go.
Peter Molyneux is for us.
Is there a new Destiny trailer?
No, so a lot of these are just coming with quick press releases. Ubisoft confirmed all their games in just one quick blast out. Destiny confirmed it on their Facebook page, I believe. So it's just coming in sort of really crazy, weird angles right now. Everyone's sort of in a rush to be like, we're on this too, we're here too. Because, if you think about it, we really only saw a couple games from Microsoft Studios, and then we saw, Call of Duty and EA, so it's like, well, what about everybody else?
Sure.
So
this is the first time that Destiny has been confirmed to be on the next Xbox?
Yeah, they'd always said next generation consoles.
Other platforms, exactly. So,
And then Assassin's Creed 4,
again,
Black Flag.
Same idea. It was like, it's on PS4 and other things, and it's like, okay, well.
Now we know what the other thing is.
Yeah, exactly. We do know what that other thing is. Again, these are all first confirmations of these games arriving on Xbox One.
Okay.
What
do you think about Xbox One?
The thing is the thing that motivates me to buy a new console is original ideas and original games. And I wasn't expecting a lot of that, but the fact that, and you guys brought it up earlier, the fact that I didn't see a game for about 35, 33 minutes, somewhere in there, I was just sitting there the whole time going, where's my games? I really... I've already got DirecTV, I've already got all these other things, and while, it's nice to have something that can integrate all these things and tie it all together, I mean, NFL partnership is amazing. I'm a huge football fan, but, I want games. I want original new games. And, obviously it's great to see EA coming out in a big way. It's obviously great to see Ghosts. But I already know those things. Those are so familiar to me. Like, show me something that I haven't seen before. I thought that was what was so effective about the PS4 reveal, was we got knack first thing. And I felt like that made a really cool statement, which is like, yeah, we'll have sports, we'll have shooters, but there's this really cool idea that you haven't seen before.
Ryan, we've just got confirmation that Battlefield 4 is confirmed for Xbox One.
Not a surprise.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
So that's another one to add to the list.
Yeah, all right. Let's write that down there. We got, 12 games now? Something like that?
Rich, you follow Nintendo closely.
Yeah.
What does all this mean for the Wii U, if anything?
Well, Nintendo's sort of misfortunes and struggles are sort of, they've always sort of existed outside the sort of normal scheme of things, and I think their struggles are their own in a way. I think that, if they come to E3 with Smash Brothers and Mario and those sorts of things, that'll be cool. But increasingly, they are they are very far away from what this Xbox One and PS4 are.
And they've tried to do their own sort of TV type thing with the Wii U gamepad, right? Are they now slamming their heads on the desks?
No, probably not, because that's just not how they operate. They don't sit there and look at... they clearly, with Wii U, have not been looking at where things are going in Xbox One and PS4. Like, these things are very, very different. Wii U's problem is that it's not instantly accessible and able... you're not able to articulate what makes it so cool. Wii, you swung the controller, you're like, oh, wow. Yeah, I understand what that is. I understand why that makes sense. Wii U, you don't quite get it. You're like, I have a second screen in my hand, but I've got 5 TVs in my house, so I don't really care. That someone now doesn't need a TV, so or has extra access to a TV. So I don't know that this buries Nintendo or anything like that. I just think that it increasingly proves that they are somewhere else, and that their ability to prove that product works is on them. So, and they're certainly not getting the kind of support that EA has just pledged to Xbox One.
It just feels, the Wii U just feels like a completely different product line.
Yeah.
You've got PlayStation and Xbox One, and they feel that they're over here, and more increasingly Wii U just feels like it's drifting off on its own little...
It is in its own little island, and Nintendo, I think, generally just sort of thinks within its own little island and its own little world. And that has led them to some incredible success over the past, 20, 30 years. This one just doesn't seem to be gelling with people. But they also, released a console and then didn't release any games for like 6 months. Sure. So that doesn't exactly help your cause.
So they said the Xbox One will be available later this year around the world. Does that mean worldwide? Is that same thing, or are they? You say, Peter, that they choose their words very carefully.
Very, very carefully, and there's probably been huge debates over this. Around the world, why didn't they just use the term worldwide? Around the world, it implies to me they'll choose, Japan maybe, and the UK, or maybe major countries in the UK, so they can say the sun never sets on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as worldwide.
We've talked a lot about the Xbox has obviously struggled in Japan, and then we wondered, does it even make sense to release the next Xbox in Japan? You have experience with Microsoft. Does this console sound like something that will appeal to the Japanese market?
The trouble is with the Japanese market is that Xbox is so damn Microsoft. It's very American, and the Japanese people, they don't really like that sort of kind of arrogance, and there's always been a sense of arrogance about Microsoft. And again, this is, I think the Japanese, they don't like to be taught, say this is the way you are going to consume your entertainment, this is the way you're going to game. So I'm not sure. I think they have to release it in Japan.
Apple,
they're forced to. Yeah.
Apple is a very American company that they have totally embraced.
Yeah, because Apple has got one thing, and it has it in spades. It's got style.
Sure. Yeah,
and the Japanese
are stylish people.
They're incredibly stylish people.
I'd point out two things: is like you didn't see any Japanese developer support there.
There were 2 dots on them.
There were, on that map of they were talking about development studios.
I guess that's how we sussed that support out. Is like,
but you look at. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't launch in Japan, because They really made, I think you can say they made a legitimately valiant effort to gain a foothold in Japan, both on Xbox One and in 360. They were very, very aggressive with Japanese exclusives, with Japanese developed titles early in the 360's life cycle, and it just never took for whatever reason. So I do wonder if they'll invest the efforts this time around.
I'm curious if they changed their approach, right? They made some really strong efforts.
I think they will undoubtedly launch in Japan, but it's how much support they give Japan.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe they won't do any exclusive titles. Maybe they were at one time talking about doing special versions for Japan. But, it's how much love they give Japan, or whether it's just another territory, just like,
Now, one thing we didn't hear, Japan, like San Francisco, people generally have smaller living spaces, and of course with the Kinect 1, that was a massive, massive problem.
Yeah.
And we didn't hear in this conference, we heard about, a 1080p camera on the Kinect. We heard about that it's a wider field of view, but we don't know how close or far away, what the distance is this time, if we've reduced that, if it is going to be more agreeable with smaller gaming spaces.
If you've got a bigger field of view, that means you can come in closer.
Right.
And it just means that, you're not going to capture the whole, you're going to capture less. So that's probably good news. No finger stuff, though.
Yeah, I took note of that as well. We saw, it almost looked like, it was like Vulcan hands. It was like sort of one, it was two, like this, but not individual digit tracking on that skeleton demo.
Like the penguin from Batman Returns.
Exactly, Danny DeVito.
He'll be fine, no problem. One bit of news that just came out is Xbox One will not function without Kinect. So you better have that thing. So you better find your space.
It comes with it.
Yeah, it comes with
it.
it.
has to be plugged in.
Exactly, it needs to be there. So you can't say, I don't want Kinect, I'm just going to go put this over here in the closet.
You could just plug it in and point it at the wall, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
That's probably what I'll do.
That's interesting, isn't it? I wonder how many cables it's got. I know that sounds a ridiculous question, but that's one of the things that I'm constantly tripping over my Kinect.
One for Kinect, one for HDMI, and
then the power cord.
Is it one cable that just goes to one, or does it a separate
it's
power?
Wireless.
Yeah, wireless is built in. Rich, I think it's safe to say Nintendo still aims the Wii U at families very broadly. Sony came out with PS4, seemed to be aimed at core gamers.
Yeah.
Who is the Xbox One for?
I think Microsoft is going for a very wide audience. That's why they're talking so much about television. They're talking so much about original television content with the Halo series. They're talking about NFL. You look at the games even they produced, which were EA Sports games and Call of Duty. This is very let's hit the broadest spectrum possible. Let's get the widest sort of net out there. And very specifically for North American, a North American audience. Here's football.
Well,
here's
FIFA 14 exclusive.
Yep.
For the next gen version. That's their.
No, that was a specific mode within
was
FIFA,
it?
right?
Okay.
I think there's some specific feature
All right, so,
of it.
but they're at least
Ultimate Team, whatever that is.
taking aim at Europe with that.
They definitely did speak to it a bit. Actually, we can see it on screen there for a second. But there's definitely a strong suggestion of NFL, Call of Duty. So I think that's what they're going for. I think we'll probably see the quirkier stuff at E3, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think that Sony seemed to be going core gamer. Nintendo, I don't think quite knows who it's marketing to right now, and Microsoft seems to be going for that wide, casual, mainstream gamer who plays Call of Duty nonstop.
By the way, did this Madden video remind anyone else of the same 2005 Target video we got with Donovan McNabb in the snow? See, this is where we're never going to play that. That's not happening.
Don't say never.
Well, not on Xbox One.
That was what was kind of frustrating about this whole thing to me was we're going to see the games and that's not what a game looks like. We know that's not what a game looks like. Now, maybe that is actually what is sort of on the game screen from and then I'm at a distance with little, UI and little, interface and stuff. But I just want to see what the games are going to look like. Let me see what my experience will be. Same thing with Ghosts. They're like, we're going to see this in-engine.
The big problem is the amount of time that the developers have. Because you can, a year before the the hardware is announced, you can go and do the CG and motion capture stuff. But when you try and get it on there, you need 6 months to a year on a new architecture, and that's the big problem.
Sure.
And it really is. You've got to spend an awful lot of time and love on those few seconds, because those people like yourselves just, oh my God, look at that seagull, it's not flapping right on the top of the stadium. So it is a tough thing to do.
It's a lot of pressure for them. I mean, I think if instant reaction, I feel like Sony spoke more to me. I don't completely reject what Microsoft did here, although I tweeted out that I thought it was a pretty decent result, and there was a fair amount of backlash in terms of like, how dare you say decent? This was terrible.
Backlash on Twitter?
Yeah, I know, right?
Shocking.
Yeah. But I mean, I think people really wanted to see what next-gen gaming looks like, not necessarily what next-gen TV, that sort of thing. I think people would have rather gotten a tease about a new Halo game than a Halo TV series. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, maybe this wasn't the right venue to just do that entertainment-heavy thing, especially in light of what Sony did, where they were just all about the games, and here's the game experience for you. But And I mean, I'm totally welcoming of some of these ideas. I mean, I've been sitting there going, "Where's NFL?" I mean, Microsoft has had all these partnerships with different, NBA, NHL, all these things. Where's my NFL? And they finally got it, so that's awesome. But I don't know. It just feels like something was a little missing. I mean, and they also have this like really difficult task of slightly over 2 weeks out from E3, trying to have some sort of presentation, and then do another one. In just, I think it's like 19 days.
Yeah, 19 days.
That's really hard to do. I think, Sony has had the luxury of going so early that you give them the benefit of the doubt going into E3, because you're like, we'll see more in a few months, and that's okay. With Microsoft, you're sitting there going, where are my games? And they're 19 days away, so that is, a silver lining, but at the same time, you're sitting there going, where are my games?
Yeah, the timing is strange.
Hard for them.
Viewers, remember, if you tweet your questions and comments at IGN, we will share the best ones here live. Peter, how do you think the conference played in Europe and the UK?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of worries about, what in that conference is there for Europeans. One of the things I did love about the TV side was, and AHL, is linking to your fantasy or the fantasy leagues, which is, that would be brilliant if they did that for football. It would be fantastic because, fantasy stuff is very complicated, and I've always thought it'd be fantastic to link it with the actual plays that are happening. There was no real sign of that. I think, Europe is just scattered with a huge number of cable providers and satellite providers and different systems and different formats. Of course, there's all the different languages as well. There was no real talk about that. They would have definitely said, we're going to support, X, Y, and Z countries. So I think people will be slightly concerned, and especially in the UK. The UK, they are real gamers over there. And, I think everybody that said all the points about, it was only a small portion of the conference that was about games. I think the British people will probably be firebombing Microsoft offices as we speak now.
One of our viewers, Christian Off, writes to us to say, I really believe that Xbox left the hardcore audience behind, which is a mistake in my opinion.
See, again,
is he being a little too dramatic?
Based on this presentation, no, but again, it just goes back to, not to just repeat the Microsoft message, because, they did underwhelm with games today, but we can't definitively say that until after
19
E3.
days, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 19 days, we know that there are 15 exclusive, Microsoft
First-party
productions,
games,
8 original IPs. Even if you showed half of those at E3, I think you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
That feels good. Again, 19 days. So it's hard to react to this one. I totally sympathize with fans where they're like, where are my games? Where's the stuff for me? 19 days, hard to kind of sit there and wait in light of this, but at the same time, not very far off.
Another one from Johan says, after that reveal, I'm hoping there are games at all. Who cares about all the multimedia and integration? Gamers want games. So yes, gamers want games, but I think Microsoft knows something that everyone else, isn't thinking, that games are only one slice of the entertainment pie. People who identify as gamers are, a relatively small percentage of the entire world's population, and Microsoft really wants everybody.
That's right.
And let's not forget the original reason, and we said it already, the original reason they got into the console space was to own the living room. Mm-hmm. Now it seems like they've got, with Xbox One, all the bits of the living room kind of sorted, The question is the living room like it was when they first started?
Good
Because
question.
Yeah.
It's, really changing. Your living room is my living room. I now hardly ever watch TV anymore. It's interesting. They've just... my biggest worry is not that they do all this other stuff. I don't worry about that. It's just lovely that it does all. They've just got to be world class at so many different areas. They've got to make world class TV. They've got to make world class interfaces. They've got to make world class games. I mean, it's almost impossible to think how you solve all those problems.
But of any. Microsoft is one of the few companies in the world that does have the resources to pull that off, right? Not saying it's easy or it's going to happen, but aren't they? I mean, financially and sort of, they've got the partnerships and the technology for that.
It's not anything to do with money. It's not anything to do with resources. It's to do with people.
Yeah.
Have they got, the fantastic script writers to write the brilliant Halo TV series? Have they got, their brilliant TV people to schedule all the stuff? Have they got the technical people to handle this massive number of boxes we have in our living room together? Have they got all those people, and can they bring them all together and get them to produce world-class experiences all at the same time, sometime later this year? That is a real problem. And today, we have less patience for bugs and revisions and updates. I mean, you look at Windows 8, they missed the beat on the stupid start icon down the bottom, and lots of people calling it an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Now, Peter, from a development perspective, with this whole cloud focus, correct me if I'm wrong, but to update your game to, Microsoft hates the word, but to patch your game on Xbox, you have to go through the Microsoft certification process, which costs money. You have to pay to do that. Do they have to drop that requirement and make it easier to update your games in this new Xbox One world of cloud-based gaming?
Well, updates are a big problem for us all. I mean, you only have to look at when you unpackage the Wii U. I mean, it's like it's three-quarters of an hour of patching before you even, which is so un-Nintendo-like. But people aren't realizing, and you hinted at it, realizing that now updates can just happen, without you even knowing about it. If your system kind of understands a bit about you and thinks, right, from 2 a.m. till 6 a.m., I'm going to patch, or everything on your system automatically for them. That's great. The only problem is a lot of these patches require you to authorize them. And some of them require you to sign off on them, or agree, or change of terms. That often happens on here. So it is a big problem.
Rich, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to bring Greg back on here in just a moment. But Ryan and Peter, now that the reveal is out of the way, what do you both most look forward to seeing at E3? Ryan, we'll start with you.
Specific games, or because
just
obviously
anything related to
the
Xbox
answer
One.
is games,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Well, all right. I'll start a little higher level than that. The release date. The release date. I want to know when I can buy it, and I want to know how much it's going to cost. Those are. I mean, I think I'm almost sure we'll get at least one of those two at E3. I would think the release date would be more likely than the price. Again, especially if my theory holds true that the price is high, and so they'll want to hold that as long as they can, and just make sure people are interested before they drop the price bomb. But I mean, software-wise, we know we're going to see Forza. We just saw Quantum Break, so I'm remembering that correctly, from Remedy. That I'm very curious to see, especially Peter. You mentioned the live action bits of that, and how that's going to interact with Xbox TV, and then what's going on with those 8. How many of those 8 new IPs are we going to see? Here's a game that disappeared a while ago that has been rumored to be back in the works. Game called Rise, R-Y-S-E, from Crytek. Right. It was obviously a very talented studio. That was a Kinect fighting Roman Empire gladiator fighting game.
Of course, I forgot about that.
Was shown in trailer form, I believe, 2 years ago. 2011, I think. Because it wasn't last year. It was 2011, and then it disappeared There were no confirmations of a cancellation. The rumors have said that game is back in the works, and that is going to be a big deal launch title for the Xbox One. So is that going to be the flagship Kinect title? So I would be very curious if that's still a thing.
So Peter, what are you most looking forward to hearing about at E3?
Well, I'm hoping that, what Phil Spencer said, you'll hear more at E3. We just hear about games.
Yes.
I don't want to hear any more about TV.
That's right.
I just want to hear I want an hour of game goodness. I want live demos. I want journalists to get their hands on things, to feel that controller in action, to feel, its responsiveness. I want to understand not only the gameplay of those games, but how those games are using this new system. There was hinting about these new servers. How, what are they for? How do I use them? All this cloud and cloud computing stuff. So I want that. I want the new IPs. I want to, at least hear the names of the 18 titles that Phil Spencer heard about, and I want to know the launch lineup. I want to know what games it is I'm going to get excited about, because, that is going to mean that I'm more likely to go and buy one on day one.
We are rejoined now by Greg Miller.
He's Peter missed me.
I did. Yeah.
Greg wants to talk specifically about ESPN.
Yeah, all the sports stuff they talked about. I've been asking. I know Daemon here. He's a big fan of the foosball and everything else. When I was on before, you asked me, what my high was and what my low was, and they kind of go hand in hand for what it was. Because my high was when they said we're bringing this exclusive experience about the biggest sports franchise in the world, which is the NFL they were talking about, and I was like, oh, and then they came out and they're just like, oh, it's some fantasy football stuff, and I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Because we were talking about if it was subsidized, right? And what the next Xbox Live could be. And if they would have come out today and said that, if you buy this system and it's subsidized, or you buy it and you get the next Xbox Live, you get NFL Sunday Ticket for free. That would have been a huge boon for them to suck people in.
I was waiting for that, too.
Right?
It didn't happen.
Yeah, you're a big sports fan. And so when they came out and they showed the ESPN integration, they're like, you can be watching, the Heat here play, and then LeBron pops up, and you want to know how he's doing on your fantasy team, it pops up over here on the side. It's like, okay, that's cool, but I think in the same boat what we were talking about as far as like HBO Go and these apps and these different things, I want the a la carte experience, right? Like NFL for me is waking up and going to watch the Bears somewhere. And now that I have NFL Sunday Ticket through my PlayStation 3, I get to wake up and do it in my living room rather than go to the sports bar. Now, what's to make me jump? If what they were showing today for the NFL experience doesn't include NFL Sunday Ticket, and I'm just waking up and then I can see whatever games on normal TV and see my fantasy football, that doesn't add anything to me, right?
Yeah.
I still go out, I still go watch it with everybody else who cares about my team and what's happening. That's how that works. And same thing for the NBA, right? If I can't get updates while I'm watching the game I want to watch, it gets really awkward really quickly. And I think one of the big things about fantasy sports is your allegiance to your league. And when you have an established league you've played with for years, your fantasy league, your best friend from high school and this guy you knew from college and whatever, it's hard to get them to go set up new accounts. I still use Yahoo Sports. And
Me too.
It's the only
awful.
It's terrible, and it's the only time I show up to use it is for fantasy football. And so to all of a sudden say that, well, what if it is this proprietary thing where it is, you're using it through NFL.com's fantasy sports and all this other thing, that's fine, but it's not what we're used to, and it's not where leagues already exist. So I don't know what the inclination is going to be there to push people out to do it.
We have a question here from Twitter. Maybe you can help us answer this, Greg. Garrett Green asks, do you understand what EA Ignite is? Because I have no idea what they're trying to say it would do different from a sports title on PS4.
No. While we've been doing this live show, they've already come out and confirmed that, Madden, FIFA, all the sports games EA showed are coming to PlayStation 4. These are PlayStation 4 games again. So I think this was another one of the quick, hey, here's this trailer about how athletes move and how realistic everything is.
That was the low point of the conference for me, by the way.
Yeah, here's Robert Griffin III talking about playing sports. You're like, okay, that's fine, but what are we doing with that? You know what I mean? And so I think that was a low point for sure, right? To come out and say something. And they framed it in the way that, everybody frames all this stuff, right? Like people, when Destiny came out of PlayStation 4, people were like super confused all of a sudden if it was coming to PlayStation 4 first or whatever. And it's like, no, it's just that here's this third party supporting this piece of hardware.
Were you moved at all by the EA Sports trailer that they showed?
Yeah. I was bored. Like, I want to see the game, right? And I was waiting for them to explain why Madden 25 would be so much better on this version. Why it would be better on Xbox One versus PlayStation 4, or PS3, or even 360 for that matter. And we didn't get
Confusing
that,
now
of
to say Xbox One, isn't it?
Very. No, that was our thing out there. Every time they were talking about it, all I could picture was the giant
Wait a second.
black box, right?
It's really strange.
How about NBA Live coming back after a couple of false starts and
Right?
missteps?
Yeah,
And like,
the
what?
franchise that I just never could get off the ground, now confirmed in the next 12 months coming out and doing that. Now, another thing, when I was last on, we talked about Kinect. Has people broken it to you? It's now confirmed Kinect needs to be connected at all times.
Well, yeah, but it's still, do you have to use it?
Yeah,
Does it
the
just have to be
question.
connected,
Yeah,
right?
just hanging
That's
off
fine.
like a sensor bar on the
Right.
side.
I
No one
can't
cares
see
about
you.
it.
I'm not going to play. I don't think so.
One of our viewers, whose name is unpronounceable, tweets this picture at us. Says, "Am I supposed to put Kinect in here? This is his dorm room, or his closet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Apparently, he games in the closet, and obviously, Kinect would not fit very well.
Right.
You cannot use Kinect very easily. In a
Kevin
space like
McDonald
that.
from IGN UK is at a UK Xbox press event right now, and they asked about this. Is it only going to work in the living room? And they said, no. It'll work in any room. That's just the biggest screen and where everybody comes together. It will work in any room, meaning that I think we're on the same page, right? That Kinect isn't. It needs to be connected, but it doesn't need to be I'm moving this around, pulling out the movies.
I would hope that they need to have it connected because they need the camera for things like Skype.
Right.
And they need the microphone for things like voice recognition, but they don't necessarily need Kinect.
By the way, Kinect, no need to leave my heartbeat alone. I'll let you know.
How
I'll
does
let
your
you
heartbeat?
know.
Hang on a second. That was a bit. How are they going to read your heartbeat?
Right?
I
They're
don't
got
know,
a
but
lot
it's-
of X-ray.
It's weirding me out.
Yeah.
It's like the Wii Vitality sensor that
Yeah.
never.
I'm sorry,
Never saw it
you're
today.
too excited to play this game. Take a rest.
Maybe you should take a break.
Like, you're about to have a stroke. I'm
No,
going to go ahead
how-
and shut
no,
down
the-
right
It
now.
automatically calls 911 for you on Skype.
That was the jumping the shark moment for me. How do they read your heartbeat?
Greg,
Unless you have some sort of device attached to you.
I remember when
think so.
Paranormal Activity 4 was all about Kinect.
Oh yeah. They knew Kinect was a big part of Paranormal Activity 4. Don't see Paranormal Activity 4. Not because of the Kinect, just it's a bad movie.
Was it? Was it?
Oh yeah.
Was it part
And I
of-
loved 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And I just write down Peter.
Speaking of,
Really?
why haven't we had a trailer or teaser for 5 yet?
We'll give it a little bit.
Well,
I think
it's-
summertime
I mean,
is
it's like
usually when
6
they
months
hit.
away now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The Xbox is probably going to be out soon. We don't even know what a game looks like on it. So I think we're all right.
Our viewer, or sorry, we
I was just going to bring up, we heard about, all those new servers, 10,000 times more servers, and larger player counts, and bigger
300,000
games.
servers? How
That's
many?
what he
Yeah,
said, yeah,
bigger.
yeah.
So that to me suggests, the wording that they use suggests we're finally going to see more than 2 massively multiplayer online games, which of course is Final Fantasy and then very recently Defiance. Rumors have suggested that Fable, Peter,
Yeah.
could go the MMO route. Now, what you may know and what you might not, I'm not sure, but is Fable a fit for? Do you think Fable would be a fit for a massively multiplayer experience? Should that occur?
I think it would be a great fit, and we that it was on the list of, here's things we could do with Fable.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a
Is that just like a Word doc on your computer? Like,
Yes, that's right. Word
Number
doc
one.
update.
Fable Sports.
Yeah, Fable Sports. We considered that. Ye olde English football.
That'd probably be pretty fun.
Because Fable, the land of Albion, it's a very rich place. There's a very rich storyline in there. People could, to play the jobs they experienced in single player, and that's fantastic. The only thing that I would challenge is to keep the humour of Fable.
Yeah.
And make it a lot of and I love World of Warcraft, don't get me wrong, but it can be quite humorless sometimes. It can be very serious, but to keep the humour there. But I think Fable will make a great massively multiplayer game. It's incredibly hard to do though.
You've already got the pet built in.
You got the pet.
You got the MMO pet,
And
the
we don't
dog.
have to strap a bomb to his back.
Like in Call of Duty.
Obsessed with blowing up animals. What do we know about Destiny? Does that count as a massively
It
multiplayer
does,
game?
because, we don't know how many players will be in it at a time, but Bungie has already said when I was able to visit Bungie for the reveal, which we, of course, covered to death on IGN, that it is an always connected game. So you will not be playing. The good news is you can play your Xbox One without an internet connection. You cannot play Destiny without one. So they've talked about other players sort of in this like journey, sort of seamlessly showing up into your game and being able to partner up with friends. But I mean, we don't know how massive the player count will be with Destiny, but it is an always online connected game.
Greg, Destiny, what do you think about Destiny on PS4? It seems to be more and more being closely aligned with the PS4.
Right. I mean, I want to see more about it. I think it's really interesting. I think it's Sony doubling down on them, right? I think for a console that is getting smoked every time on Call of Duty DLC, right? And for the biggest franchise in games or entertainment, they can't make any inroads.
Well, with Bungie and Sony sort of getting it's like Sony dating Microsoft's old girlfriend.
Exactly, and that's why they did that.
Not cool, Sony.
Come on, man!
You didn't even ask. But yeah,
I thought we were friends.
You have to go after that, right? Because they need a feather in their cap, and they're making a big bet that Destiny's going to be big, and that Bungie is going to resonate and bring people over to at least see what's going on. But so far, what do we know? What have we seen about it? Right? I want to see a lot of games.
Yeah, it seems like Sony is betting on Destiny as the next big thing, whereas Microsoft securing, continuing its Call of Duty DLC exclusive partnership, they are betting on Call of Duty continuing to be the big thing.
Right.
You see, the thing about Bungie, they are so passionate about what they do. I mean, they're insane, crazy passion, and that is what's going to drive you through if you're creating a new piece of IP. And what have we said? What we want is new IP. So I think it's smart to get behind Destiny. If you bet on anyone, you bet on someone like Bungie.
Right.
And if it is, I love the idea that it has to be always online because that means they're doing something different. They're going to change the game, and that's what we want. And that's what the original Halo did. Remember that Bungie pretty much invented first-person shooters on consoles, and they solved a lot of those problems. So we've got to be excited about that.
What did we learn about the new dashboard?
What did you guys think of it? Because when it finally popped up, I was like, okay, here it is. Yeah. It is, kind of Windows 80, but it looks navigable. It looks manageable. It didn't terrify me. Peter?
Well, I loved the line. It's your dashboard, and the dashboard.
Yeah, you called for this in the pre-show.
Yep, I love that. I hope they take that all the way, and that could be great. I still like the metaphor of the tiles, and it's familiar to Windows 8. That makes sense to me. If I'm, I was going to say, God forbid, for some reason, using a Windows phone, then it looks similar to my Windows 8. That makes sense. It feels like one product. It really feels like fast switching. I'm not so sure about this, to be honest.
The screen grabbing.
Yeah, the screen grabbing stuff. Because as you say, if I'm holding a cup of coffee in this hand, Ryan's going to get in the face.
I liked the trending tab for it'll bubble up things that people are actively interested in. But it doesn't address the thing that we talked about on the pre-show of, we were talking about how Xbox Live Arcade games, all these great games are just buried and no one can ever find them. It's still up to Microsoft to help bubble that stuff up so people can even find it in the first place. Like the trending thing is great if people can find it, right? So it's up to Microsoft to be...
Well, of course, when you think about trending, it's similar to the App Store and the featured list. Of course,
what's hot?
The intelligence behind what's hot and trending.
Call of Duty, Halo.
Minecraft.
It's going to be interesting.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Greg, remembering back to the PS4 reveal, wasn't their dashboard sort of Windows 80?
Yeah, no, it was very, very. You look at it and there were different boxes and pictures. I think it was a little more simplified down to like maybe one or two rows to kind of go left to right, read with the eye. Whereas this one definitely is. Here's your big favorite, and here's these little things, and then here eventually is the snap tab when I pull Skype over or whatever.
Mm-hmm. One of our viewers, Matt McMurray, asks, he says, what are your thoughts on the cloud services? I have terrible internet, so I'm very skeptical. They mentioned cloud, but they were kind of vague about it.
Well, it doesn't necessarily, it just means, I think, that they'll, that's for pushing out, Skype stuff, what your friend's doing. It's not necessarily going to require a Google Fiber connection for all that stuff. I mean, games, of course, multiplayer gaming is where you need your your connection
Right.
the most.
Yeah.
For me, it was another move in the chess match between them and Sony, right? We already talked about the fact that Sony made a big deal about sharing, right? So then Microsoft comes out today and says, very vaguely, we have sharing too, and the DVR kind of thing, and then step back from it. And in the same way here, Sony came out and made a big deal about Gaikai. They come out now and say, oh, we have clouds too, and then they step back from it. Like they were talking about it, and your movies and your games and your saves are all going to be up on this cloud if you want. But to me, that's just account management, right? Like that,
Yeah.
I should have the download list already. And if we're talking about that, then that's what the PlayStation 3 does right now with PlayStation Plus. Upload my saves, and if I go to Damon's house and I put my profile on his system, pull off my games account management, pull down my saves that way.
The cloud can be so much more than it currently is.
Right.
Yeah, because really concurrently, simultaneously connecting not 16 people together, but thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people together in a shared world. That's what I'd like to see. If you talked about Fable being an MMO, I'd like it to be thousands of simultaneous people in this incredible world. And we in the games industry have yet to prove that cloud is a viable piece of technology for gamers. And that's going to help a lot. But there's plenty of stuff there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe you can kick that off.
So let's sticking on the Fable topic, Peter. You worked. You'd said earlier, you teased us that you were sort of in on some of the ground floor initial discussions for this Xbox One console.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that and how now it's changed in the time since you've left Microsoft and this Xbox One reveal we've had? What was the initial thinking back in the early days, and how has it evolved into what we have now?
Well, there was always this. There's always this haunting memory of we want to own the living room, and that was very dominant, and they were thinking about having two versions, a very uber powerful version for us core gamers and a much lower priced version for the mass market. And there was, umming and ahhing, and there was worrying about cost. There was worrying about, should we be doing everything on servers now and not locally? And so there's a lot of indecision there. The problem they really had, and I think Sony and Nintendo have it, is that to ramp up the processor speed and the memory to make a significant difference, to make a visible difference, meant an incredible amount of cost, and meant that they would have to take the similar sort of hit they took on Xbox One. And that was every console they made
sold at
a big loss. And that was out of the question. You've got to make money on the hardware.
So that even from the very get-go, they were like, we cannot afford to start at a loss and then recoup it later through manufacturing efficiency.
They had to get into the console market with the Xbox One. They had to invest money, and the way they invested that money was to subsidize everyone's machine, which was. I don't think, I don't know this, but I don't think they ever made a profit. They were just buying.
Correct, not on Xbox One. They never did.
They were buying consumers with that subsidy. And I don't think any company now can afford to do that, is to buy consumers in the same way. So that wasn't really in the card. Then there was this competition, so should we go, a lo-fi, cheap experience, which focuses more on the mass entertainment, or should we go very hi-fi, core gamers experience? And there was a kind of, a two-horse race. Obviously what has happened is that they've slammed those two things together and created a mutant one-horse race with lots of legs, or something like that.
Xbox One is a mutant horse.
Mutant multi-legged horse. There's the strap line.
So it's there's really nothing of that original plan in what we've seen here.
No, there's definitely bits. The idea of it was always the idea to keep Kinect in there because that's it's a USP, they're differential from the Wii U and the PlayStation. That was in there. Obviously, the concentration on live services, you could see that. I think their idea of reinventing the work we think of as gamer scores, that was, that was kind of always in there. I think the mix, from my experience, has changed a bit. The mix seems to be less about games, less about the necessity for a faster processor and memory, and more about replacing everything in your living room with this one box. Yeah. And that obviously, for me, a gamer, is my big worry.
We're going to say goodbye to Greg again. Now run along, you little scamp.
There's pizza out there.
Oh my, what? Oh. Save me a piece. Now, Peter, you were talking about how Microsoft was cost conscious with developing the new console. You know what's very expensive is developing a high quality television show. Yeah. So I imagine, creating a Halo TV show will be a monumental expense. You have to hire writers and actors and computer animators.
They've been fanatical about trying to get Halo as a movie, trying to make it as big as Star Wars.
Transmedia, right?
Yeah, transmedia, bigger than Star Wars. That's what that's been their obsession and passion. But my worry is, there's so much rubbish TV shows, and TV and film industry has destroyed more of our gaming franchises than it's helped.
That's true.
Thereby hangs the big problem is if they don't get the absolute best of the best, and that little I shouldn't say
Forward Unto Dawn?
No, I was going to say the little tiny bit of live action stuff we saw in Quantum.
Ah, yes.
That made me worried because it wasn't. It wasn't shot particularly well, and the acting wasn't particularly solid, and that's what I worry about. They've got to do a world-class job. I loved when Bonnie came out and she said, "Right, I love Breaking Bad, I love Game of Thrones," but I'm sure every TV executive does that.
Well, yeah, Game of Thrones cost something like $60 million. It's like it cost a fortune.
Yeah.
But I will point to this has been done well. The Forward Unto Dawn web series that Microsoft did to hype up Halo 4 was exceptionally well done, and the ratings reflected that.
Yeah,
we're joined now by Fran Mirabella III.
Showed up.
Yeah.
What did you think about the original programming stuff that they were planning on?
Yeah, it sounds like you guys were just talking about Halo, right? I don't know how much you got into it. We've had a busy day here, but I think one of the big questions there for me was, well, we all want to see more of it, obviously, but where's it going to air? Have you guys talked about that?
Xbox Live.
But they didn't say that, and that's the big question. Could we see this going exclusively to a network like NBC?
I don't think so.
You think so. They're paying for it all? You have to watch it through your Xbox.
I think they're trying to make it a compelling reason to have Xbox Live Gold is to watch their programming.
That's a
same thing as Arrested Development on Netflix, right?
That's an expensive ticket. I mean, I'm with you. It makes perfect sense, but what if they partner with HBO and it's on there? Does that take away from watching it on your Xbox? I guess it does, right?
And the interesting, on that question, if you're, this is all about getting the talent. If you're an actor or a script writer or, a producer, would you want your show to be on Xbox, or would you want it to be on HBO, or would you want it to be on, syndicated across the world?
I bet if Microsoft paid you enough,
you'd
be happy for it to be on Xbox.
If you're Microsoft and you can go to that talent and say, we have a network of 40 million gold subscribers, whatever it is, that's pretty compelling, isn't it?
That's not, but it's not though, right? Global syndication of a TV series, especially when you think about, well, when is this going to air? We don't even know. It could be 3 years down the road. Hopefully it's sooner than that. And maybe it'll be seasonal too. Maybe it'll be like Game of Thrones, where you have to wait an excruciating 8 months or whatever before you get to the next conclusion of an episode. But I do think it's actually important to get it on a network. But maybe what it'll be is, okay, exclusive Xbox, entertainment studios brings you from your Xbox the debuts, and then maybe it begins to syndicate with a partner on a network.
Possibly.
So
well, launching on it makes sense. You only have to give a couple of weeks exclusivity, and that would be enough to of a carrot to get the box.
That would just be a huge investment, though. I mean, right? You're talking, I don't even know, $50 million, $100 million to exclusively put it on the Xbox. How are they going to make that money back? hardware sales, right? Like
Through Xbox Live Gold subscriptions?
Yeah.
And advertising during said shows.
Sure.
There you go.
That's actually, have you guys talked about that topic, which is, so one thing, right, Microsoft is supposedly, building some sort of studios in LA.
Right, that was Nancy Tellem.
Right, exactly. And they really haven't said what that's going to be. Sounds like you guys have delved into that a little bit. But I could see that being its own channel. But then the question is, will they serve you just ads like any other network?
The cloud enables many more ads to be fed to you.
More ads than ever.
Tailored to you.
Yeah.
What did you think of the conference overall, friend?
Well, we were doing rehearsal the other day, and I kind of was talking through. I wanted them to really show me the home entertainment box for, my living room. That was really important to me. I know games are super important. I can hear everybody on the other side of the internet like, they didn't show anything. Why were you impressed? But it's so important, to grab an even broader audience. I get that. So I was impressed that they got a lot of the in-living room stuff right. I'm sure Greg talked about how excited he was about fantasy football. So I was really impressed with what they were showing me with voice command, with instant switching is very exciting. How quickly that will work between initial loads of games and all that is another topic to get into. But look, I was impressed overall. What was missing for me was the internet experience. They showed a little bit of it, right? They say Xbox Snap, and you're on your Twitter. Okay, well, how do I surf the Twitter?
Yeah.
How do I actually do that?
How do you post something?
Yeah.
You're right, actually. That's something that occurs to me, is if a lot of people, especially a lot of the younger people, are, a lot of their entertainment comes from YouTube and the internet, and if that's not part of this instant instant snap equation, that's going to be a big missing piece.
I think they pretty much said it, but they couldn't show everything, and maybe because of if it wasn't working quite perfectly. I think the sensitivity of Kinect, and again, I don't know how much you guys talked about this yet, but right, when you watched him on stage, he's like, Xbox, do this. Voice did one thing. They did show pulling open the main screen, but what if all those other tiles, how do you get to them? You can say, Xbox, watch Game of Thrones. It's one of the squares. What they didn't show is the floating hand. It was missing, mysteriously. So I think the question is, will the hand return? How quick will it be? But I've been thinking about it since I saw it, and one big thing I noticed was when they went through the Kinect demo, I saw the claw. So they didn't see fingers, which was a big topic. Will they be able to see all your digits? I don't think they got there, which makes sense. That's expensive. But it is rocket science, as they mentioned, so maybe. But I saw the claw, and it occurred to me that there's a couple things going on there, hopefully, is I can imagine sort of the glowing orb. I think they tried to do that on...
some games.
Yeah, the glowing orb. But imagine, right, that you can surf really quickly with the orb. Now, the next step is, can I grab the screen? So
that's my theory.
So maybe you pinch and whatever, it turns a different color, a different shape, and you can start pulling things. Then can it sense the depth to just float, hit a tile. And so that's the experience that's, again, for me, is so important. I want to sit on my couch. I want to move my keyboard to the side because I'm that crazy that my television is my computer. And I want to have this experience where I'm surfing the internet, instant switching to my games. So, whatever, I'm sitting there playing Forza, and I say, Xbox, Snap, YouTube, and I've got my game on pause, and I'm going through search, IGN, walkthrough, and I can boot that up, and as well, right, you need that orb at that point, or whatever it is, to surf through the comments and then get back. So I think that, for me, and maybe I'm more excited about this than you guys, but...
You seem very excited.
Yeah, I'm like super excited. Because if they can get that sensitivity...
Yeah, if they can...
I'm skeptical.
But I am skeptical, because one is, the golden rule with all these gestures, if you're dealing with TV, is they've got to be super robust. And when you're doing... That's when we saw those skeletons, you couldn't see the fingers, and actually some of the skeletons didn't even have hands at all.
Yeah.
And I worry about if you require users to do that, this sort of stuff, because when you say, just pinch your fingers, pinching fingers can mean that, or it can mean that, and you don't want to do that, or it can mean that sort of stuff. So I very much doubt that you're going to be able to do the pinch stuff. The other thing I'm very worried about is the voice recognition won't do the very thing that I want it to do, and that is say, show me Game of Thrones, wind forward 6 minutes until Khaleesi...
Spoilers.
Yeah, because the voice recognition will have to go online if you're saying unique things that break out of the library that's on the Xbox One.
You're speaking to it, understanding maybe specific words even.
Yeah, speech recognition is super tough to get right.
Sure.
And as you prove with Siri and with Google Speech, it has to go online to get the uniquenesses. So I worry about your stuff. But I agree with you. When I saw it, I forgot for a few moments why I was excited to see the conference, and that was to see games, because it was a wonderful demo.
It did look. Just on the demos, it was like, okay, this is the Kinect we should have gotten all along.
Yeah.
Which is what we hoped it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I do also want to kind of go on the record just on that point to say that I do think it's super important that this is the thing that's missing from your whole in-living room experience. I use Apple TV all the time. I wire my computer with my mouse and keyboard, and it's just a huge hassle, and I'm like an advanced user, obviously. I'm going through all these motions. I think to bring the audience the ability to just sit there on the couch and do all of this stuff in one place, and what I'm getting at is Microsoft seems very committed. And I also want to pose the question, will Apple be far behind? Because...
that's an interesting... Well, here's two questions for you. If they control the living room, will they allow me to say, Xbox play PlayStation? Or will they allow me to say, Xbox play Apple TV? Because, to really control... That's the problem. If you're trying to do a one solution fits all. You've got to think of all those things, including the competition.
Yeah. There's one other Kinect question I have. I've wondered before this event, is Kinect going to be, because we'd heard that architecturally the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were going to be fundamentally very similar. So I always thought, okay, well, is Kinect 2.0 going to be the wild card in this scenario? And what this event paints, E3 will be the difference. We'll know for sure when we see all the games is Kinect being used for apps and services, and we won't see it much in games, because Kinect has thus far not functioned very well as a game device.
They shoehorn it into stuff like Mass Effect 3 and Ghost Recon.
I actually think that could be really smart if Kinect, they relegate it to do what it does well, which is apps and services and living room stuff, and leave, and not really deal with it much on the game side.
You know Microsoft pretty well, Ryan. Would they do that? Would they not really kind of push you into using Kinect? I mean it in a good way, but...
It just depends. I guess it depends on the games themselves.
Yeah. I think it's important they don't force it. I think that's what you're getting at is, look, hey, Microsoft, has not been working that well. We'll see what it does for the games. But I think that remains to be seen. You can't judge it without seeing what this depth, the new claw digits or whatever, provide you in a game. Again, imagine... I imagine how I use my phone, which is when Apple introduced something as simple as you swipe from the top and pull down a screen. Like, I think there's that opportunity we always talked about when we heard about Kinect, was like, you're sitting there playing, and maybe there's a way to do something faster, whether it's with your voice or with a swipe. You're doing this, and you want to look at your score. Whatever, you know what I'm getting. I don't know what the solution is, but I think there's a really good opportunity, but they got to do it in the right way, and not... What I hated doing was standing up and jumping up and down, and that's just not for me.
I suspect, that there probably is some Kinect games in development, but I don't think they're major on Kinect at all, because the only thing they need to do with Kinect and gaming is have a fantastic game. And there's nothing they can say. They can't say, oh, it's got a lot more fidelity, or it's a lot faster processor, or it's a lot better resolution, because it doesn't mean anything. They just need to bring out a game which is a fantastic interface into, and rewrites gaming. Maybe Fable Journey 2.
Maybe.
Yeah.
A lot of people, both on the IGN side and the audience side, have expressed disappointment in the lack of games today. One of our viewers, Shade J. Howell, writes us to say, as much as we hate it, I'm fairly certain that Microsoft will make more casual customers than lose hardcore ones with these TV features.
It's a very valid point, actually. That's an extraordinarily valid point.
That's what I imagine Microsoft is thinking themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what the Wii did, granted, they fell off a cliff after those 3 years of success.
They still sold 100 million consoles.
Yeah, they did get Blue Ocean. They got new people playing games. The problem is they didn't keep it up and do it the right way. I think it's the right direction to to focus on, right, the ESPN, the sports, because it will attract a lot of people who are just not playing more than maybe a game a year, right? There's a big audience, and that's the big question is, can you get those people buying 2 games, not the people who buy 8 games a year buying 9 games?
So I just think this conference, it's funny we talked all about TV stuff. This conference ended ended in a cliffhanger, just like a TV TV show.
Sure.
And we're going to pick up that cliffhanger at E3 and see the second half of what this Xbox One can really do.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? Did Microsoft present their next console in the best light possible? Did they take some next-gen mindshare away from PlayStation 4?
From our audience, not so much. But again, I do feel like E3 is we can't put the IGN score on this until E3. Then we can definitively say, okay, now we know what we've got, and whether I'm excited about it. I mean, as of now, yeah, I'm buying one because I just love Xbox, and it's my job. And Forza is going to be great, and anything Remedy makes, I'm definitely in for. But what are those other original IPs, and what else do they have cooking up on the game side?
All right, Xbox One. Huge thanks to all of our guests today, especially Peter Molyneux. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure being here.
You've been watching our Xbox Event Post Show brought to you by SpeedStick. Of course, the gaming revelations don't stop today. E3 is just around the corner, starting the week of June 10th. We're going to see even more about Xbox One then, so keep it on IGN. Right now, we're going to leave you with the Call of Duty Ghost trailer, and we'll be replaying the full conference after that. Thanks for joining us.